Kilpatrick Townsend attorneys are representing Southern Poverty Law Center and Al Otro Lado, a nonprofit that assists unaccompanied minors and families at the border who are seeking asylum and other protections in the United States. And we filed a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act to better understand Customs and Border Protection's policies that are keeping unaccompanied minors in dangerous border towns. I am disturbed as a U.S. citizen that there are thousands of youth and families who actually have the right to cross and have extensive protections under federal law that are not being enforced. And so I wanted to ensure that the public understood these policies and how they're impacting vulnerable youth and families.
I work with several outside organizations that do immigration work, the Georgia Asylum Immigration Network and Tahare. So this was a defensive asylum case from an indigenous background, abused by her father and her family, and ultimately she fled because her life was threatened. And so her situation was incredibly compelling, and in court she was fantastic. She stood up to opposing counsel and answered some very, very difficult questions. Incredibly proud of what she was able to do. Immigration clients are obviously incredibly different. There's language barriers, very big cultural barriers. They've suffered immensely, and so they're very different, and you learn to help a different kind of client.
We represent an immigrant mother and her child escaping an abusive situation with the child's father. He's a gang member and was horribly abusive to the mother. They came to the border from Honduras, were immediately picked up by Immigration and Customs. They gave the mom a baggage claim for her personal property that the government took from her. I did not see a similar claim for where they took her child. They were separated about 2 months. They're back together now within this state, and we have filed on their behalf an application for withholding of removal, an asylum application, and an application for relief under the Convention Against Torture to try to get them immigration status that will let them remain here rather than returning to Honduras.
My client was Claudia. She was 25 years old with a 6-year-old daughter from Honduras. She was fleeing domestic violence, sexually, physically, and emotionally abused by the father of her child. And when he threatened to kill her, that's when she fled to the US. We submitted a pretty substantial filing to the court. The court actually commented that it was one of the biggest filings they had received.
Addie found herself running point on our case for Claudia. And she ran point with aplomb. This was an Addie production from start to finish, and her dedication and her interest in this case was amazing.
The judge granted asylum at the bench, and the client and I actually teared up in the courtroom. To go through something where you, in a way, save someone's life is a feeling that I'd never felt before. Let's just say we celebrated.
Through discussions with REMAIN, the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, we, along with other law firms, decided to participate in this pilot program to help prepare detainees at the Aurora Detention Center for the credible fear interview.
You go and help the detainees frame their story so that they can explain the facts in the light most favorable to them to the government.
We had a mother from Guatemala and her daughter was separated from her. So the mother was here in Colorado, the daughter was brought to a facility in New York. Basic legal education and the ability to clearly set forth a story can really help these people a lot.
At times you get lost in the weeds of the emotion or things that they found are important, and the bigger details for their asylum case get missed. We go in, help them reorient that.
The differences between the detention centers meant for civil detainees looking for asylum and the federal penitentiaries is not much. That does raise questions in my mind of where our priorities are in this country in terms of how we're going to treat those who are searching for something new in this world.
The case involves access to counsel for immigrant detainees in detention centers throughout the Southeast. Our e-discovery team was brought in at the outset of the case, and we ended up with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of documents and millions of pages of data. We have 31 members on our team, and every single person on our team touched this case in some way.
The large human rights organization that we're assisting, they came to us for this particular task because their resources to manage electronic discovery is somewhat limited.
Rather than use human eyes-on review to do that, we have all kinds of technology in-house on our team that allows us to do that in an automated, almost AI-type way. If you're a lawyer, access to counsel is important, regardless of what political side you fall on. So I think that it's something that can appeal to all people across the firm. Here, we were really given the freedom and autonomy to come up with our own workflows and solutions.
We received Mr. Aguilar's case as a referral from the East Bay Community Law Center. It's always a hard slog going up on appeal because all the presumptions essentially run against you. And in particular, in the case of immigration decisions, there's a higher degree of deference given to the agency decision.
Mr. Aguilar was trying to get the Ninth Circuit to hear his appeal to take the case back down to the Board of Immigration Appeals. The chances of him ultimately getting to stay felt extremely remote. And with each victory that we had along the way, Ben and Lydia did an incredible job of digging into the record and finding little bits and pieces that we were able to stitch together.
It was a long process. There were a lot of steps in between, from the Ninth Circuit going down to the Immigration Board of Appeals to the immigration judge. When I first called him, all I could hear was sobbing. And then the first thing he said was, "Thank you. Thank you, 1,000 thank yous to you and everyone else who's had an input in my case. I cannot thank you enough. Me, my family, oh my God." You're changing a person's life, a family, everyone involved in between. It changes their world, and for me to be able to be involved in that process, for me it means the whole world as well.
The kind of draconian sentencing laws in this country that affect just all sorts of people, those have been changed from time to time. Most of the petitions, and certainly the ones I worked on, were drug-related offenses and had no violence involved. On the one that was denied, we moved for compassionate release, which that motion has been pending for like 4 months, and I wish the court would act. We may make some progress, but it's slow. But there are some contributions I can make that actually may help people, and I'm happy to do that. I think actually it's obligation for people who can help to do it.
I started with the Georgia Justice Project criminal records program about 5.5 years ago. What we have is a problem with the criminal justice system in that about 1 in 3 people in Georgia have a criminal record. People who have a criminal record are often denied employment, they're underemployed, or they have difficulty getting housing.
Oftentimes a mistake that you made years ago is following you around. We like to say that you shouldn't be measured by your worst day. You should be able to move past that. Tina brings intelligence and the diligence and the hard work to all of her criminal records clients. She also brings a wealth of compassion and just empathy for her clients. She's very loyal to our program, having taken 8 clients as a feat, and we greatly appreciate all she has done.
Pro bono matters are really interesting because we work in areas where we don't typically work. We're learning about new court systems, about different types of forms, and it just provides a different opportunity to learn about a different part of the law.
I've worked with Rebecca for 3 years now, and she's fantastic, intensely responsive. I've got a case right now where the client is an inmate in a federal prison. He injured his hand, and instead of taking my client to medical care, the captain said, "You don't tell me how to be a captain, I won't tell you how to be an inmate." We were appointed by the court, and Rebecca's been crucial in allowing our client to get justice. It's a blessing to be able to work with her.
Rebecca helped me with a case for a woman who was seeking asylum. She was a mother of 5. She was a survivor of stage 4 neck and throat cancer. I couldn't think of someone who's more deserving of this honor. I think the same dedication and selflessness that she shows in constantly performing at a really high level in her billable work, it doesn't surprise me at all that she also is selfless and committed to using her remarkable paralegal skills to help other people.
The most rewarding part is the opportunity to make a real difference in somebody's life. We're making real change in their lives day to day.
Support staff are critical to what lawyers in general and litigators in particular do. They put the briefs together, they ensure that they comply with the rules, they create the tables of contents and authorities, And even with respect to other things lawyers do, the legal assistant is standing right behind the lawyers.
We work on a lot of compelling cases. With the Seattle team, they have 2 Texas death penalty cases. One is in Dallas and one is in Houston. And so I've kind of helped a little bit on each one, just depending on what they need. It makes you feel better inside knowing that you've done something, and when you can share that experience with somebody as a team, you grow closer.
We literally could not do our jobs without our legal assistants and other support staff.
Our client is a Native American who was employed and is still employed with the Department of Energy. She had been involved in advocacy efforts on behalf of Native Americans throughout the country, and we allege that as a result of those efforts, she was discriminated against.
She filed an internal complaint, and after that, they completely reassigned her, taking her out of a policy role to a menial task job within the department. Now, because it's been litigated, rather than silencing her, they're actually going to amplify the message. The awareness she was trying to raise is going to be raised even more.
She's going to continue to advance within the government and continue to be the role model and advocate that she is, and I think she'll have a lot of positive impact.
The Palacios case came to us through Whitman Walker, which is an organization that serves a lot of LGBT and transgender patients in this area. Ms. Palacios called for an appointment, asked if she could see a certain surgeon. They said yes, she went in, and then the story changed, and now they were no longer serving people like her.
For a couple of years, I felt that I was helpless, and I was going back and forth in mediations, and we weren't able to move forward. Once they, took over, I felt that I was supported, and I felt that I actually had hope.
We filed suit against the particular provider and the corporate parent, and we're able to reach a really good result.
Right now is when we're seeing change on transgender legal issues. So I think that's just critically important, so that really drew me in.
The law hasn't developed along with sort of social norms changing. You had an issue where you knew that something was wrong. Proving that in a legal way was much more of a strategic battle than one would probably assume.
We made the world a better place for, in this case, Ariana, and for those who come after her. And hopefully they won't have to experience the same type of discrimination.
From the time that we brought the case and brought it to its conclusion, we have seen tremendous changes, not only at the defendant, but what we also have seen and learned about other healthcare providers is that things have progressed in a positive direction.
As a human being, we all deserve to be respected and be treated with dignity. And I'm happy for the new changes that are coming out for my community.
4 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. in August at a wine store, and I saw at the back of the wine store a woman and her fiance that were selling a book. And I went back and talked to them, and they were amazing. They were passionate about what they were doing, and I thought, I'm going to actually hire them to come and do a wine tasting at the Washington, D.C. office. And she said she'd asked folks for years to help her set up a nonprofit for women and minorities in the hospitality industry, especially in the wine industry, but all she heard was no.
One lawyer team said that we were a bunch of stupid girls. Another one said that he didn't see the point of the organization.
The program is really intended to help women and minorities in the hospitality industry get access to the resources and opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. The industry is really dominated by men. I think we kind of knew that, but the numbers are really staggering. By giving students resources they wouldn't otherwise have, that will really hopefully excel them.
Kilpatrick Townsend just completely changed everything for us. They immediately enveloped us in support.
Suzanne was super eager. We just kicked into high gear and we were able to become incorporated, get our 501c3. It's been a dream and unbelievable.
One thing that's been interesting to me with this organization is there are board meetings and they really do need kind of constant tax advice. Things come up. Just been a pleasure to be involved and be part of it.
When I did my wine studies, it cost over 15 grand just to get my foot in the door. And that was not even a guarantee for a job or anything like that. And for a lot of individuals who work in the restaurant industry or hospitality industry, that's not something that they can really fork up front. Kilpatrick has been like our guardian angel because they were able to give us all the tools necessary to really carry out our vision.
There's an intense personal satisfaction where you're actually using the law to help individuals.
You're working with the one person who is affected by a decision, and you're trying to make them whole and help them improve their life. And it's really rewarding. It's rewarding in a different way than the other work that we do.
It's a good idea to, to dabble around and dig into other things. It's good for your brain. It's good for your soul.
You do also learn and gain more skills when you're working on pro bono because you can do things, particularly as a young attorney like myself, that you wouldn't normally do in a case.
It's a really good feeling to know that you've got a skill set that is great professionally and is great for the firm, but also can be used in a way that really changes people's lives.
Having been at other firms, I appreciate the full support that Kilpatrick gives, and it's not just paying lip service to pro bono work. The firm is really committed. Tamara is very committed.
What makes this work interesting and is primarily because of how different it is from our normal everyday. It's so people-oriented. You have imperfect information. You have a real life and death, in some instances, situation.
You have no idea the impact that you're gonna have.